Hello and welcome to Insomniac Live. I'm your host, Cory Hoover. James Stevenson is out today, and with me is Brian Allgeier, the creative director of the Ratchet Clank Future series, and Jeff Weidner, who's an animator. And we're going to be playing Ratchet Clank Future, A Crack in Time. But before we get started with that, I have a little bit of unfinished business with our Friday the 13th stream that I hosted a couple weeks ago. We were talking a lot about Friday the 13th Part 4. There's an infamous Crispin Glover dance scene that some of you guys might know. Probably most of you guys don't know it. Anyway, it's pretty bad, but I've been told that I have to do this dance. So, Jeremy, if you cue that up, we're just going to get that out of the way and then move on to the real stream. All right? Let me know when it's going.
All right.
All right. Well done. So,
nailed it.
It was as if Crispin was here himself.
Yeah. Okay. I have no dignity. So anyway, let's play the game.
Yes. Let's
Brian,
do
why don't you
that.
start driving?
Yeah, all right. We'll jump into it right now. Thank
Okay.
you, Cory. That was an awesome intro.
Oh, okay. One other thing I want to mention is that, so we just dropped the Spider-Man teaser trailer at Paris Games Week. And if you haven't seen it, you should go watch it. Just search for it on YouTube or on our Facebook or Twitter. And we're going to talk about it on Friday, okay? So if you have questions about it, come check out our stream on Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific. And let's see. Brian Intihar is going to be answering questions about it. If you have questions about it, you can tweet us, and we might answer it, okay? So it's Friday at 2. But anyway, here we go with Ratchet.
Yes. So I worked on this game back in 2009. It was the last time I played it. So even though I was a creative director on it, and I've worked on many Ratchet and Clank games, much of this gameplay is going to feel fairly new to me. So if it looks like I don't quite get the controls, I'm probably thinking of controls from a different Ratchet and Clank. So actually, the one thing I'm trying to figure out here is we had Ratchet got a special wrench upgrade in Quest for Booty, and he could throw. He could actually. All right. See, that's what happens. He could actually throw out the wrench and latch onto things and pull it towards him.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to remember if this is really embarrassing. If I could actually pull this bridge towards me, I think you still be able to make this jump.
Well, I bet chat knows how to do it. Maybe you guys could help us out.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we are getting a couple followers. We got Razor Talon 20XX.
All right, maybe I'll come back to that.
And Tabriz. Thank you very much for the follows.
So one of the things that was a big goal was to really bring these worlds to life, and you can see like those pterodactyls overhead, and we had these like strange, bizarre mushroom type creatures, and we really wanted all of the Ratchet PlayStation 3 games to feel like a living, breathing world, starting with Tools of Destruction. That was kind of one of our big mantras, and I really feel like with A Crack in Time, we really hit that goal because there's like space exploration, and we have all these various factions, like the Fongoids here, and then we even are rescuing their children. So, like this guy, but I probably should destroy all these mushroom enemies. His name I forget.
Maybe we should turn on Do you guys, chat, do you want subtitles? I don't know what he said right there. Well, someone knows. They are xiphoids.
Xiphoids, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah, what I love about this game is just how rich the world is and how there's all subtitles.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. You know, the flora and the fauna and how it all connects and stuff. It's like you really built this whole world that all fits together. Why don't you talk a little about like, I mean, I know it's been an evolution where there were previous games beforehand, but how do you get all those pieces to get together? Like, how do you start with that?
So
Right.
I think if you rotate to the left, that platform.
Oh, that's, I think this was a problem in one of our usability tests. That's so funny. I remember that. Thank you, Jeff.
No problem.
And Jeff,
Shocked I remembered that.
right, Jeff, you were mentioning earlier that you picked. Oh, well, first off, the one thing that to answer your question, Cory, we always have pillars at Insomniac, and those are kind of like the 4 driving key factors of any game. It's like kind of helps us get us on the right path. And whenever we have a question about where the direction's going with a particular feature, we can always go back to those pillars. And so, for instance, with A Crack in Time, the pillars were space, time, heroes, and hearts. And so we had a big emphasis where there was going to be like time manipulation. That's what's happening right here, where time's kind of like ping-ponging back and forth. And so, that's goes to the title.
Okay.
There's been a crack in time, where Dr. Nefarious has been actually messing around with the Great Clock, which is at the center of the universe, give or take, I think like 50 feet or something.
Yeah,
and right. Essentially has screwed up time across the galaxy.
Okay.
So we really wanted to make sure that was very clear and evident throughout the entire game that time was messed up. And Ratchet, in his own way, is experiencing how time screwed up, and then we jump back and forth between him and Clank, and he's also repairing time, actually.
Right.
So Jeff, you were we were talking earlier where you were more of a Ratchet fan of the PS3.
Yeah,
era,
so
right?
I did not own any of the previous PlayStations. I jumped in with PS3. And at the time that this was getting set to come out, I want to say I was at Sony down in San Diego working on some stuff for them, and bought a PS3 because of the project that I was on. I was like, oh, I got to play this game, which was Uncharted 2. And then this was getting set to come out, and so I started reading up on it and bought Tools of Destruction, and then bought this when it came out, and just fell in love with the series in general. This game in particular was my favorite. I've played through pretty much all of them that have come out since that time, so including Quest for Booty and Into the Nexus and All for One. And they're all, they all have their unique charms that I like about them. This one has always had a really special place for me, though. I loved so much about it. The animation style was awesome. The gameplay was a lot of fun. The story was great. The exploration I really enjoyed. As I mentioned earlier, it was more than just show up on Planet X and run around and figure out what's going on. It was, explore space. There are the little planets where you can do some puzzle solving and that sort of thing. It hit like this great sweet spot for me. And so yeah, that's my story.
Yeah, and, one thing that's really that's great to hear, and it's always cool to hear like an outside perspective. I think a lot of Insomniacs came to Insomniac because they love the Ratchet and Clank games.
Sure,
and
yeah.
Were fans. But yeah, this was a situation where a lot of people don't realize this, but when we moved over to the PlayStation 3, I think a lot of people assumed that we just took all of our tech and gameplay code and just like ported it over to the PlayStation 3 and just kept moving forward.
Right.
And we ended up scrapping pretty much everything and rewriting all of our tools and engine. And a lot of people didn't like the title Tools of Destruction because that's what we were experiencing. The game, the tools, everything was just crashing all the time.
I love that that's where it came from.
That was one of the inspirations for it. And so we ended up having to kind of like streamline the first PS3 game because we just couldn't support as many features like we did on the PS2 games. We couldn't do multiplayer. We couldn't do a lot of those mini games or side games. We couldn't do spherical worlds. We couldn't do like space, in-depth like space combat or space exploration. And so we almost had to like go back to what it was like making the very first game on the PlayStation 2. We were just kind of limited.
Yeah.
And so by the time we got to the third iteration, because Quest for Booty was between this and Tools of Destruction, we could focus more on a wider breadth of game and really dive into space exploration, spherical worlds, and stuff like that.
I remember playing it, and the first opportunity I had where you could land on one of the little planets, and I don't know why this struck me as just so cool. Where it's like, you're almost a quarter of the size of some of those at some points, and I don't know. There was something about that it's like it's hilarious to be like this almost giant character on this small little asteroid essentially, but you're running around it, and finding or figuring out whatever there is to seal it.
Yeah.
It was one of those things I liked about it.
Yeah, there was actually a big debate on whether or not to go with a 2D space combat, where it was like I think Geometry Wars was really popular back then, and we thought it'd just be pure shooter, top down, you're flying around, lots of ships coming at you. And then we would do this transition to spherical worlds.
Okay.
And it was a really tough call, I remember, trying to figure out, do we go with the more hardcore top-down 2D shooter, or do we stick with our more third-person angle, which I think gave you more of a sense of space exploration.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
it was great.
Yeah.
So, just a question: who here would have been the one who did the little tools animations?
That was Toni Mora. He's former Insomniac. He worked on a lot of that type of stuff, and he also worked heavily on Song of the Deep and Outer Knots, and he's great with that cartoony looking style. That was like a specialty.
Those, those were one.
And I believe that I don't know if it was on this one or on a previous one that he worked on, but he was like a outside contractor who we worked with just to make that specific stuff, and then we liked it so much we brought him in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a kind of a last-minute addition to the game. That was similar to also, I guess, Space Radio, which was something that wasn't planned for at all.
Oh, okay.
And then it was like extra story content, and TJ Fixman ended up writing all the Space Radio, and then he had to write those weapon animations. And it really helped instruct players on how to use those weapons and kind of advertise them. And
right.
That's something that we've learned with all the weapons. You have to almost like show why they're useful and how they're effective.
It's a really good tool to do that. Oh, okay. So we have some new followers. Sorry, Julian Nito 01. I missed you a little earlier. And Basalt. Thank you both for following.
Oops.
Yeah, sometimes it seems like designers will use the technique of give you a weapon, but then the setup in the game is specific to use that weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously here you could buy anything that's within affordability. So yeah, I just liked the style of those tools demos, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
Next Snap asks, what does Toni Mora work on now at Insomniac? He's actually working, I believe, on a cartoon show at Nickelodeon now. So he's not with Insomniac anymore, but we still hang out every once in a while. He's a good guy. He's still working around Burbank. So Tony, if you're out here, I think you owe me $5. But anyway.
Right, lunch is on you next time.
Sure it'll fix affiliate?
Oh jeez, what am I doing?
So this is almost like an Indiana Jones type sequence going on here.
Yeah, we've had that throughout the series. We had like the Path of Doom or Path of Death, and was it Going Commando? No, it was Up Your Arsenal actually. And so yeah, I think a lot of us are big fans of Indiana Jones and Tomb Raider.
Kiwi2458 and By Paul, thank you so much for the follows. So that music cue there was pretty hilarious, and this game we got a new composer for it compared to the previous games in the series, right? It was
That's correct. Yeah, it's Boris Salchow, who's worked with us on the Resistance games. He worked with us on Fuse, and there was certainly a question on whether or not he'd be able to take on a more lighthearted style game.
Mm-hmm.
I think the interesting thing is that even though these are family friendly and lighthearted, we always treated them almost serious in some ways in terms of like the music. Like the Agorians soundtrack has like this very heavy bass with horns, like this barbaric kind of sound. And I think it could probably fit in other more serious games. But then at the same time, we'll jump to the music with Clank, and it has more of a Danny Elfman, Oingo Boingo, kind of lighthearted Tim Burton feel to it, and it's almost like kind of like a fairy tale. All right, what am I doing? Not the way.
I need that Zoni.
Chat, we need some
help.
help.
I do need to grab the Zoni. I just
the
I ran
Zoni.
right
Okay,
by
yeah,
it.
you grab it,
who is this guy? Thank you, Jeff.
Just random guys floating around. Not important anyway.
Yeah, chat, I'm sure a lot of you guys are quite familiar with this game. If we're ever getting stuck, just go ahead and tell us the answer. I can see it right here. Although we should be the one.
Did I just get turned around?
Yeah, I think we go back.
And then go right back in there.
Yeah.
All right.
But I think I probably need to get 3. No. It usually always comes in 3s.
You survived? I mean, you survived.
I told you to do it.
Well done. The vessel is yours. Come, there is one more zone we put in the
All right, that's the third one.
safekeeping. Our guards discovered it wandering around the waterfront. It can help you.
My first Ratchet game was into the Nexus, and you know, it was really fun to work on. It seemed very similar to this in a lot of ways, and kind of continuing the essence of what this game was like. And so I was so happy when I got to work on it, because, you know, we're always talking about like, well, is this the last Ratchet game? And we're never sure. And then when I came into Insomniac, and then I got to work on it, I was so thrilled that, like, oh, I still got to work on one. It's not done yet, you know. And then I ended up working on Ratchet PS4 also, and it's like, oh, that was such a fun experience.
Yeah, we've always really enjoyed working with the Ratchet games. There's so much flexibility with the universe, so many different things you can do in terms of gameplay and storytelling. You know, we always love the humor and the jokes.
Yeah.
All right, it's time to fight.
All right, let's see your skills, Brian.
Oh, jeez. So I'm using the Sonic Eruptor, and this has a special feature where if you time it right, you get a bigger blast.
Oh, nice. That gun was pretty powerful, if I remember right. I would usually use that to clear out.
Yeah, it's essentially the shotgun.
Yeah. At one point, I was really good at these games because I was doing gameplay capture for the trailers.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, but I usually only remember enough in the moment, and then when I have to move on to another game, I purge all that memory and make room for the nuances of the next game I'm capturing. But yeah, Sonic Eruptor was, I think it was like one of my favorite weapons.
Got my ammo since it's here. Yeah, it's a great weapon, and it's a thing. It's always challenging because there's always those standard archetypes of like your rapid fire gun, your blaster, and then your shotgun, sniper rifle, and with each new Ratchet, we knew that we just had to have some of those archetypes, those basic weapons that were kind of like the bread and butter of combat. And but then at the same time, how do we put an interesting twist on it? How do we make it kind of fun and new and fresh? And people saw this, but the Sonic Eruptor is basically like this kind of like blowfish type creature that you're abusing. Oh yeah, this was crazy, this destruction here. We had to like block off your way of exit. And this was actually really hard to do, surprisingly, in terms of nav mesh and like blocking that off. There's like some real crazy technical challenge.
Oh, interesting.
It's funny how there's these little things that you just assume are easy, and
Yeah.
someone's like staying up late at night pulling their hair out trying to figure out how to make the enemy's path around rubble.
What? No.
Yeah, that never happens.
Yeah, and the game does a really good job of making everything seamless, you know, where the way it's going in between the little cutscenes and then into fighting and then into, you know, further down, you're exploring and just keeps coming and coming, but obviously it's loading in, you know, right before you round the corner and stuff like that. Oh,
Hey, you got the
level
upgrade.
up. All right. Yeah, those are pretty good stats.
Yeah, not bad, huh? Yeah, I remember this particular level when we were developing it, it kind of ended on this meh, where we just kind of killed a bunch of dudes and that was it. And then the designers just decided to add a whole flurry of enemies at the end. I think there's going to be a bigger enemy too that shows up here. Maybe not.
Next
Sometimes
snap. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Next Snap asks, would Insomniac make a 2D platformer in that cartoony style? Well, we did make Song of the Deep, which is a 2D platformer that's in a cartoony style. It's not necessarily the same exact cartoony style as the Ratchet cutscenes, but Toni Mora was one of the main artists on that game, so it has a lot of the, you know, similarities and everything, and it's really fun. So Next Snap, if you haven't checked that out yet, you should. Oh, we got a new follower, Flop Him. Thank you so much for following. Oh, this boss is pretty awesome. Well, you just killed him though.
Yeah, but it certainly forces you to strafe. That's,
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
ends on a high note too. All right, I'm gonna pass Jeff the controller after I get my ship and we head off into space.
I should have brushed up this weekend.
Well, I'm not doing so hot. If you haven't noticed, I've been forgetting. I pressed the wrong button when I'm trying to shoot.
Well, you're still alive.
Okay,
You know,
yeah,
there's
that's true.
that.
I haven't died yet.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I caused some controversy. They're saying, would you really call Song of the Deep a platformer? It's a side scroller, but platformer? Alright, I mean, whatever, you know. It's 2D and it's cartoony. It's kind of, you know, in the ballpark of what you're asking for with the cutscenes
I
from
guess
this game.
Yeah, it's definitely a side-scrolling 2D shooter, I guess.
Well, I guess Metroidvania is
right,
like
that's the term. That's right.
So
Metroidvania.
Quick, use this Oni vessel to
All
repair
right.
your starship.
will you do interviews at Paris Games Week? Is that why James is in Paris? James just really likes baguettes, and he travels a lot. If you are familiar with him, he likes to travel. But yeah, he's there handling all the Paris Games Week stuff going on right now. But on Friday, we are going to have all the questions and answers about the trailer, and Brian Intihar will be here.
Oh.
So
Very good, Jeff.
Oh boy.
stay tuned on Friday for all that stuff. But in the meantime, we can't really say much about it right now. At least I can't. I'm filling in for James, so it's like I'm not gonna be the one spoiling stuff. You're gonna hear from James if anything. Okay. And Ryan is running the chat right now, and he said yes, James is in Paris for PGW. All right. So Jeff, you have played through these before, so
Yeah. I've
right.
played through this game a few times actually. It's actually one of the only games I ever took the time to earn all the trophies for. I don't consider myself a trophy collector, but I just played it enough times that I eventually earned everything. But it has been quite a while, a number of years since I've played it.
Well, it'll all come back to you, I'm sure.
We'll hope so.
I love Cork complains about serving tap water on the ship to him while he's in prison.
You do that?
Yeah, Quark's great.
Good. Now hang tight. I'm on my way.
Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Do I have to catch up to them? I forget.
Alright. You definitely have to board that ship, but there might be other ships that come into play here.
That's right. Okay. It is coming back to me.
So if
There we
you're
go.
just joining us,
Spiders.
we're playing Ratchet and Clank Future, A Crack in Time with Brian Allgeier, who's the creative director of the Future series, and with Jeff Weidner, who's our animator. But he started working here after this game.
Yes.
But you can still ask him any animation questions. I'm sure he'd be
Sure.
happy to answer them.
Space combat was interesting because we tried many different varieties of space combat. In Going Commando, it was more free flight, and I think you had 6 degrees of freedom, pretty much.
Okay.
And then maybe you didn't have the full rotation, but you had free flight, and you get into some really weird positions as you're trying to track down enemies. And then I'm going to be really bad at trying to recount every space combat unit. We had one on rails. I think that was Tools of Destruction, where you would essentially just travel down rails and have to shoot ships. And then with A Crack in Time, we decided to limit you to a plane because we found that we just want to make this very accessible, no frustration, very easy to fly around and see where you're going and see what you're targeting. So we just decided to kind of keep it on that plane. And we have to deal with collision issues. We have to deal with like disorientation, which would often come up. It seemed like it worked out fairly well. And it was almost like a 2.5D. We kind of took that Geometry Wars 2D and just kind of put it at an angle.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. He's ready. Okay.
Quark.
Oh, we got a missed question here. Let's see here. Jeremy, who was it from?
Oh gosh,
This is
that's
where you
right.
have to do the wrench pull. That's what I was thinking earlier.
Oh, yeah. So Kratos, God of War 342 asks, why did you guys implement difficulty in this game?
Why did we?
Yeah,
Or why didn't we?
it's about
I think it's white.
a new Rhino for each game. Or
Oh no, what do I do?
Oh.
I don't remember.
I guess he's asking multiple questions.
one super far back.
Alright, I'm resorting to just.
Oh wait,
buttons.
hold down L2, I think,
L2.
and press square. Wait for the flames to go away. Alright. Did they say L2? Try L1. And press square. You have to throw the wrench. Oh, did we? We moved it. Try R2.
Oh, here we go.
I don't know. Try R2.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
I have a question. What inspiration did you guys have for making a new Rhino for each game?
Oh, well, that's a funny story with this particular game. So with every, we like the Rhino being this kind of enticing treat that you can get through various ways if you either earned enough bolts or there's various ways you can unlock the Rhino. And in this particular game, we were trying to figure out like what would make the Rhino feel special. And I just wrote kind of like an inspirational statement to our weapons designer that when you fire this weapon, it needs to be like a Gatling gun with rockets coming out of it, and you should be hearing the 1812 Overture as you fire it, which is that song they play at those 4th of July concerts. I'm not going to try to sing it, but it's like a classic song.
I mean, hey, I danced earlier. You can sing. It's fine. There's no shame here. No,
and then Brian Bernal, who is our project manager, was like, you know what? Let's actually see if we can play that song while you're using it. And I think it turned out to be one of our more popular Rhinos because it played the music and you felt awesome.
Yeah.
And you just take out like swaths of enemies.
You know, that's actually my first memory of this game. When it came out, I had a roommate, and he bought it. He would buy every PlayStation game, and I didn't know that he had this game yet. And I walked in the room because I heard that song playing from my bedroom.
Oh, yeah?
And I walked in the living room. I was like, "What are you listening? What? Why are you listening to that?" And he's like, "No, it's in this. It's a weapon in the game." I'm like, wait, what? Huh? And then I sat down and started playing it, and just like, got totally hooked.
Nice.
Oh, okay, we got a new follower. Briefcase Mong. Thank you.
That was one of the charming elements, I think, as well. That having that overture play, it's not one of those things you expect, and then when it happens, you're like, that's pretty clever and awesome. Okay.
So Ratchet is on.
We're on Vorsalon's
ship, going to rescue Quark and the Fongoids. Yeah, this guy's gravity boots here.
What game was the first one that had gravity boots?
That was the very first one. They were called mag boots.
Okay, so they were there all along.
Yeah, and I think we were always nervous about making people nauseous with the earlier games, and so we were always careful with whenever we'd have to rotate the camera around the yaw, I think it is.
Yeah.
Roll it essentially.
Yeah.
So we'd always be careful not to do too many crazy spirals. But I think we did a lot of those in Going Commando. So
it's really well implemented. I mean, I don't think I ever felt any kind of discomfort or anything. And you're all over the place in this one. It's a lot of fun.
We got questions galore here. K-Tiger, you had a lot of amazing ideas in this game, like the constructo weapons and space exploration. Why do you guys not bring those ideas into later games? I guess I could touch on that a little bit. You might know too, for games that came after this, we didn't want to get stale, and so we were experimenting with different kind of subgenres and tweaking the formula a little bit just to, always try to be improving things and not just staying content with the status quo. And, some of them worked well and some of them didn't work so well, and we learned from them. And, it's always like a progression. So I guess that's probably like a surface level answer for it. I don't know, Brian, if you have more insight.
I mean, I think we definitely did a lot of experimentation with this franchise over the many years. For us, we always want to stay engaged and excited about the games we're making. So we do experiment. We try out new game types, a different tone. Yeah, I think after we made the third Up Your Arsenal, we're like, where do we go from here with Ratchet? And then we decided to go more in a darker direction with Deadlocked and focus on co-op and multiplayer and put more of an emphasis on that. And so, we certainly learn from these various experiments. Like Quest for Booty was a fairly short, bite-sized game, and a lot of people really liked it, but then a lot of people complained that it was too short for a Ratchet. So you just kind of keep going, learning, keeps you excited.
Yeah, I hear you.
I have to welcome...
Yes. And someone else just too. Okay, 2 new followers. Dumarite? I don't know. No, it's not Dumarite. I don't know how to say your name, but thank you for following. And Kingdom Zathers, thank you both for following. And I guess it's sort of like a band that has a big discography, and then you go to their concert, and all the fans, some of the fans are going to want to hear from a certain album, and other fans are going to want to hear, I don't know, maybe like a collection of everything, and then some want to hear the new songs, and it's like, it's hard to please everybody with each new thing that you do, but you want to make sure that you're not just doing the same exact thing over and over. A lot of bands that do that actually kind of break up because they get bored.
Right. Yeah, there's also just a lot of factors in terms of production, like depending on the size of the team, and we do think about what the market wants, and we're trying to respond to that. You know, originally, Ratchet Clank was a platformer with some guns, and I think later it pretty much turned into a shooter with platforming. And so we just kind of looked at, I think that's part of the reason why it's been around for so long, is that we've responded to what players want, and at the same time keeping the core of what makes Ratchet Clank so special.
Right.
That space exploration, traveling from planet to planet, and a high emphasis on weapons. But we've certainly learned on how to kind of focus the franchise in this direction that we're really excited to make and players want to play.
Yeah. The Jack and Umer123321 has followed. Thank you so much for the follows. Appreciate it. And another question. Sorcery Warrior asks, hey, you're blending two classes there. You're either a sorcerer or a warrior, all right? I don't know what kind of name that is. But do you feel bad when you kill those creatures for bolts? Well, Jeff, how do you feel?
How do you
See,
feel?
I haven't killed any of them. I feel fine. I go to sleep fine.
I feel fine.
All
I'm
right.
okay with it.
He's a monster.
It's Call me a monster if you will.
One kind of joke around the office was I wanted to make a Ratchet game where the main villain was thug number 17 from mission 42, who he was killed, and so the villain's the son of the.
That's awesome.
There's a way. Oh, there we go. That's what we had another question.
Just the doors echo the visual motif of Ursula, his face and the eye.
Oh yeah, I did not notice that. Is that a testament to his vanity?
I don't know.
I'm just-
I think I just noticed that myself. I'm like, wow.
That's the first Rhino plan, yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So this game, you got the hollow plans.
How many do you need to get?
1 of 10.
10,
apparently,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Out there.
Find out what
I
you
always
can.
like Mr.
As an
Zircon.
enemy of nefarious,
I think a lot of
he might be
people
a
do.
friend to us.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a character where I think Brian Hastings wrote an idea of a gadget that you could just press a button and hear jokes. And it was a fun idea, but we were just thinking like that's a lot of writing for kind of like a gag
Right.
weapon. Like, you know, what's the utility of it?
Sure.
And then I was thinking of like action hero or action characters, and the idea of like you have this little toy action hero called Mr. Zircon. And then it kind of evolved into this. And then TJ Fixman just wrote a number of hilarious one-liners for him.
Nice.
And it's cool because he'll comment on the enemies and, you know, whatever situation you might be in, and he'll throw out a funny line.
Yeah, Zircon's great. I love his family too.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. In the PS4 game.
Yeah, it's like little Zircon.
Yeah.
Like, I think in our trailer we used that as a stinger once, where it's like, little Zircon wants to kill.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so we have a technical stream question here. Lieutenant Royal Shrimp is saying it looks a little dark. Jeremy, you could try adjusting the Elgato settings if you like right click on it. Hey guys, I'm explaining this live as it goes.
Elgato settings.
If you right click on the Elgato and then there's like a color or something, settings like that. Now be very, very delicate with it because it's gonna just like, you adjust it one little notch and it's a whole lot, but I think like contrast or not brightness, contrast, you could try take that down to like maybe -10 or -15. Shrimp, let me know if you like that, if it looks a little better. We won't be able to see the update on our end on the TV, but on the computer it might look a little bit brighter. Will the Ratchet & Clank trilogy come to the PS4? We would love for that to happen. It's currently not planned right now, but you never know. Fingers crossed. We'll see.
That'd be
You
great.
know, there's a lot of factors that play outside of our desire for that to happen. You know, Sony has to decide that that's agreeable for them as well too. But yeah, I mean, we would love it. So you know,
Depth
just
perception is off.
keep stay ready so that when the time comes, you know, we could do something like that if it's going to work out for everybody. K Tiger says the stream looks good in my opinion. Well,
Thank
that's
you,
good.
K-Tiger.
Thank you. Yeah, we do our best. I think we all showered this morning. I mean, I don't know, maybe not, but let's see. Sorcery Warrior. Oh, I saw your comment too, Sorcery Warrior, about Mage being taken or whatever. I understand. How about Resistance? Yeah, that's another one too. You know, obviously, a lot of us who worked on Resistance are very fond of it and would like to see a remaster or a sequel or something like that. And you know, if it works out, it works out. So just be ready, be prepared, and you know, maybe the timing will be right at some point, and we could do something like that. As of now, no plans for it. Pro tip: you can avoid the lasers instead of running into them. Well, we're, you know,
some of these laser challenges have always been tricky because it's the depth perception is a problem. They're hovering above the ground and you have no reference point on the ground.
Yeah.
With Ratchet's feet.
oh, you did it.
Sometimes we put burn marks there to solve that problem, but whenever they're moving, there's not much you can do. Probably on the PS4 we could actually put a light underneath the laser.
Wow. Can't believe that worked.
It's, oh, here comes the war song.
Chat, what is your favorite weapon in Ratchet and Clank? I'd be curious to know that because when I was doing some of the trailers for Nexus and the Ratchet PS4, sometimes I wasn't sure what weapon to show off because there was just so many and there's only so much gameplay footage I could make, and I was trying to do variety, but I would like to know what the fan favorites are. I bet Sheepinator would be up there. Oh, we got a couple more followers. Essenthy and Real Evan AMC. Thank you very much for the follows.
Black Sheepinator.
Black Sheepinator. Mm-hmm.
It might lower the field.
Yeah, Mr. Zircon and Pixelizer. That's
Yeah,
a great one.
Pixelizer is great, yeah.
Yeah.
Or Pixelator, I forget.
I'll get us
I
out
don't
of
know.
here.
Pixelizer.
Name says, wait, no, the wrench. Well, I mean, got a lot of work done with the wrench, you know, and even for an ammo and everything. And then I had a question. This came a second earlier. Shira Hedgie says, do you have some advice for those who want to get the chance to join your crew in the future? Well, it depends exactly what path you want to take to get into games. All of us have kind of a little bit of a different background, I guess, because there's so many facets to game development. So I guess you got to pick the one that you're the most interested in, be it, you know, art or programming or sound. Even like Brian Intihar, who's the CD on Spider-Man, he started working at GameStop, I think, and then he became a game journalist, and then he started working, you know, from there kind of made the crossover. So
Yeah,
there's
project management.
yeah, there's a lot of different paths you can take. I think the main thing is you got to get really good at something though, you know, and just stay current and up to date with it all. So if you let us know a little more of what you think your interest might be, we could maybe give you a little more specific answers.
Certainly there's so many tools and resources out there for just dabbling in game development that I think you can become familiar with Unity, which is free, or you can mess with other various game engines out there, but just to kind of understand the nuts and bolts of what makes a fun game, even if it's a very simple 2D side scroller that you're programming at night after work or something, you can just learn a lot. And then obviously, like back when I was getting into games, there were no schools or no courses for teaching it, but now there's so many online courses and schools available for that. So yeah, it's I think with one common thing that most people here have is just a real passion for video games and being able to kind of take them apart, understand how they work, and solve the various technical and creative problems needed to make fun games.
couple new followers. We got Xenix and Old Spicy Keychain. Thank you very much for the follows.
Nice.
That's a good one.
And then we got a follow-up to the question they were saying. I guess it was when Jeff mentioned something earlier. It was about animation and getting hired for animation specifically. We have talked about this a little bit on past streams. I'm going to kind of rehash what Lindsay mentioned, and then why don't you give your perspective on that as well.
Sure.
I believe she said, you know, like a kind of focused demo reel really helps with just a couple key pieces, like 4. Not like 10 things that are kind of everything you've ever done, but pick like your very, very best. And if there's something on there that is decent, but you don't think is your very best, don't even bother including it, because it really is more about having the best of the best. And you should also tailor your whole reel towards the specific company you're applying to, and make sure that it fits, and not just kind of have an all-purpose reel that you send out to every studio.
That's definitely, I mean, I don't think I could say it much better than she did. I would say, I guess the only thing I would add is, and you kind of touched on it, is, you know, if your best work is only 30 seconds worth of work, it's better to just send out a reel that's only 30 seconds long than try to pad it out with, you know, extra stuff that maybe isn't so great or isn't of the style of the studio that you want to, that you're targeting. Because, yeah, most of the time, I think it's important for people to realize that when we get reels, there's not a lot of time to like sit through and carefully analyze them all the time. A lot of times you have to basically make a judgment call as to whether you're going to put the time into viewing a reel within the first, say, 20 seconds or so. And if it starts off and it's not strong, or it doesn't look like it's going anywhere that's going to, you know, be what you're looking for is in terms of a potential employee, then they're more likely to just pass and look for another reel that does meet those criteria.
Ghosts Chiz 22, thank you for the follow. Sorry, Jeremy. Jeremy is reminding me when we get followers, because I'm kind of half paying attention to the chat, and he was like just writing out this long name, about to hold up the sign for me, and I'm like, oh, I caught it. Jeremy is the man behind the man, you know, making it all happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how the industry has changed in terms of the type of people we look for. In the past, you'd be a jack of all trades, and you could do lots of different things because the teams were fairly small and people had to kind of move around. And with AAA games now, the teams are so big that even though, you know, we have a highly collaborative environment and everyone contributes in different ways creatively, there's a lot more specialized roles now. And so that's something to kind of consider. Is I think it's still helpful to have a broad focus starting out to kind of learn what you want to do and get familiar with all the different parts of production. But then at some point you probably want to narrow in on really what your focus is.
Oh, I remember.
Oh, this guy.
I don't know if we did answer this or not. Someone was saying, I think it was Ratchet Extreme, was saying, was the Pixelator a fan-submitted weapon?
It was not, but there. That was actually, I forget. I think maybe Joel Bartley, one of our gameplay programmers on the PS4, came up with it, and then I think Rob Wyatt programmed it or helped program it. But anyway, there was a weapon that was submitted from a fan for A Crack in Time, and it was called the Spiral of Death. And yeah, we had a weapons contest for this, and the submission, I can't remember the guy's name, but it was basically this spinning blade that would go out and kill enemies and come back into the gun like a boomerang.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was one of the more popular weapons. People really liked it. And we actually made a mock-up version of the weapon. It was cast and everything in like resin, and gave it to him at Comic-Con back in July 2009.
Nice. Jeff, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, you are doing really well. You've played this game multiple times. And actually, you've seen Borsalon probably. Seen him like 3 times throughout this game.
Right, yeah, I do remember. I think maybe it was the final encounter that I found to be. I always love that.
Isn't that hilarious? The tiptoe and the invisibility. Oh, yeah. Sneaky.
Oh, you're out of ammo.
Oh no.
So if you guys are
There
just
you
tuning
go.
in, this is Insomniac Live. I'm your host, Cory Hoover, and with me today is Brian Allgeier, the creative director of Ratchet Clank Future Series, and Jeff Weidner, one of our animators. And we're about almost done beating this boss with the help of Mr. Zircon, hunting him down.
The Sonic Eruptor is a good choice in this situation.
You know, it's funny. I don't think I had that. Like, I remember. I don't remember what I first chose as one of my first weapons, but I don't think it was the Sonic Eruptor. And now I'm realizing how much I'm regretting not having done that, because this is a very handy weapon.
Someone asked, how does PETA feel about this weapon?
Well, I don't know what type of animal this is, but none of them were hurt during production of this.
Yeah, we didn't actually reference with, like, you know, tying a blowfish onto a gun or anything.
Do you want to take over again, Brian? And
Sure,
shoot
yeah.
for,
Or
the
Cory,
next-
how about you? Do you
the
want to
next
play?
section?
No, Brian, you'll do better than me. I mean, I want to play. There's a lot of chat going on right now,
Right.
and I want to try to at least catch some of these questions here. We got some new followers, EJ1 Zog, and Mikey1123. Thank you so much for the follows. Appreciate it. Going back into space.
Yes.
Now this feels like it was the first time where you could really explore space. Because I mean, the first time you had to get on board Borsalan's ship, but if my memory serves, this is the first time where it's open exploration, kind of.
Yeah.
You can choose where you want
We
to
had
go.
like multiple sectors.
Right.
And this was like the first of, I think, 4 sectors. I guess I don't think we let you land on these moons, I believe. I think your first task was to do some space combat, land on Borsalan's ship, and then I believe.
Got some good questions about villains here. One of them is saying, what would it take for a Ratchet & Clank villain to one-up Nefarious at this point? And then a kind of a tie-in is, what's your favorite villain in any game you've made?
That's a great question. Mine is definitely Dr. Nefarious, even though we tried really hard to one-up Nefarious with Tachyon. And I think Tachyon's a fantastic villain, but he just couldn't beat Nefarious. I think Lawrence, the sidekick, really helped in just kind of being a nice foil for all of Nefarious's like outlandish behavior. All right, what am I doing? I have to switch weapons. Thank you.
It's tough to stay alive and talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
But you're
hordes of
doing
enemies are
great.
chasing you. So yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. We've also tried to kill off Nefarious, I think, multiple times in various ways. And I don't know what kind of spoilers I can give at this point on this game, but let's just say that we tried to kill him off, and he always comes back.
Even in the
As the best
movie,
villains do.
it looked like he died, and then in like the post-credit scene, he's
That's
alive.
right, yeah,
You know, like in his skeletal form.
Right.
For me, I think my favorite villain is kind of a twist. Is Quark, who's like not really a true villain. Most of the time, he's not a villain, but then he kind of was for a little bit there. That's just because I love Quark so much. I love everything about the way he talks and his personality, his arrogance. It always cracks me up. So he would be my favorite.
Yeah, he's definitely. How about you, Jeff?
I'd have to agree with you, Brian. Nefarious is probably my favorite Ratchet & Clank villain. Everything, just from the way he's written, the way he's animated, he cracks me up every time I'm playing a game where he's featured. And if it was up to me, I probably would just say, that's it. Every game is just going to feature Nefarious. In fact, we'll just make a Nefarious-centric game, and you play as Nefarious.
We'll get lots of villain questions now. Anastasia asks, what would be the next villain if you made another Ratchet game? Oof, I don't know. I mean, sometimes we introduce new villains. Sometimes it's back to Nefarious again.
Yeah, Director's a great one. And let's see, who else did we have here? I liked Captain Slag, which wasn't really a main villain, but he was fun with
good.
Rusty Pete's.
Right.
And then we had Captain Darkwater in Quest for Booty, which was kind of fun, bring him back. That was one of the more funnier VO sessions, was when Darkwater and Slag were talking back and forth.
I think I also really like, and now I'm going to embarrass myself because I cannot remember the name of the other Lombax in this game.
Azimuth.
Yeah, Azimuth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like him. He's kind of got your redeemed villain arc going.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like, I don't know, I felt like his motivations were understandable in a way that a lot of villains sometimes aren't necessarily, because, you know, he's just trying to correct what he perceives as the mistake that led to the elimination of all the Lombaxes. And, you know, I wouldn't say he's my number one. As I said, it would be Nefarious, but I think I do like him a lot too.
Yeah, I like that phrase, villains are the heroes of their own story.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like Azimuth thought what he was doing was right.
Right.
To bring back the Lombaxes. But the way that he wanted to do it was kind of twisted and messed up.
Yeah.
And that was one of the big points of this game was we had like a bunch of main themes, like one being time, but in terms of a story main theme, it was about discovering your purpose, finding out your reason to be.
Right, right.
And so Ratchet believed it was reconnecting himself with the Lombaxes. Clank believed it was reconnecting himself with his past, his origin of operating time.
Mm-hmm.
And Nefarious wanted to create a universe where heroes always lose. And so we kind of explored what it means to follow your purpose, and sometimes it means deviating from what you believe your purpose is. You know?
Or on Super 95, thanks for the follow. Yeah, I think that's a great point too. I think that, you know, how you get that good drama there is, you know, when things are clashing like that, when someone thinks they're doing the right thing, at least to them, you know, through their perspective, and it's just not compatible with the other, you know, the real protagonist's version of what the right thing is. And because, you know, it's all kind of in the eye of the beholder anyway, so yeah, that's definitely, I mean, even with Quark, that was his thing where he he thought he was doing the right thing, I think.
Right. I didn't notice with him.
Just,
Right?
he's pretty thick-headed though.
Yeah.
The
right thing has to do with his ego.
Right. Yeah.
Megatech, thanks for the
Yeah.
follow. But, you know, I feel like he thinks that he has to be the one in charge of everything because he's so great, and like if anyone else does it, they're gonna mess it up, and like he really believes that even though he's wrong.
Right.
Yeah, but having that kind of sense of redemption, that moment when they kind of realize things, it's always usually pretty dramatic.
All right, so this is where am I going here and what am I doing? This is I believe that's where Zolar Forest is. I forget the name of the planet.
You have to,
Jump to the Vela. Okay. All right, how do I do that? So this.
Would you say that Crack in Time was the best story written for a Ratchet game? I think it's definitely the most intricate and has the most mature themes.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I feel like we really hit our stride with our storytelling chops on this game. And Tools of Destruction was kind of a weird experience because I laid out like the whole macro and kind of a rough story that was just kind of, here's a bunch of levels that we're going to make. And then TJ Fixman came in late, and he was like our first dedicated writer on the Ratchet series. Oftentimes we'd have like Brian Hastings or someone else kind of filling in and like writing on the side. Actually, I'm sorry, Brad Santos was the first dedicated writer on Up Your Arsenal. But TJ and I worked really well together on Quest for Booty, and I think that's where we really started to like understand how to make gameplay and story work together within the Ratchet universe. And with A Crack in Time, the fact that we got to further explore Clank's origins and Ratchet's origins and introduce another Lombax and really build on everything that we'd set up in the first game, Tools of Destruction, I think it really all paid off.
Yeah, this game definitely feels like you're in full stride. I mean, a lot of the games are amazing in so many ways. This one feels like, I mean, it's like all the reviews and all the feedback seems to be too. It's just, you know. We got another question here. Do you think Talwyn will ever come back?
Well, we never killed her off, so there's always that possibility if we ever were to make another.
Not explicitly
game.
dead on screen, then anything is possible.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, heck, if we can blow Nefarious up or vaporize him, and he can
Right.
somehow come back as a robot, then anything's possible. I really liked Talwyn a lot, and with Tools of Destruction, we wanted to make give her more of a backstory with Max Apogee. And we never really, we had to kind of abandon some of those subplots just because the story was getting a little out of control and hard to understand. We had way too many avenues, so we had to kind of pare back.
If you are just tuning in, this is Insomniac Live. I'm your host, Cory Hoover, and with me is Brian Allgeier, the creative director of the Ratchet Clank Future Series, and Jeff Weidner, one of our animators. And we've gotten pretty far today, making some progress through this game. How long is it all together? I mean, we're probably about 2.5 hours in now.
Yeah, we're still in Act 1.
In Act 1.
This game's probably between 12 and 14 hours. Yeah, we've kind of barely scratched the surface here.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I feel like we've just barely gotten into
Yeah.
it. Especially if you really start to take all the exploration into account. It just seems to really...
Oh, I jumped.
Get a good amount of game length out of that once you start exploring all the planets.
Big jump in.
Gravy Biscuits, we will be talking more about Spider-Man on Friday at 2. If you don't want any spoilers or any more details about the trailer, just kind of, But
Or just watch the trailer.
Yeah. Well, they were saying like, no more trailers. I've seen enough already to know it's a day one purchase.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So, but anyway, for anyone else who's interested, Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific, Brian Intihar will be answering questions about the trailer that we just revealed at Paris Games Week. So you can ask us questions on our Twitter in the meantime, and we will answer them on Friday. Thanks.
So Jeff, as an animator playing this game for the first time, what were your thoughts on, I guess, storytelling, animation?
Well, I think the storytelling I've always felt was really strong, and there's so much that I love about the style of the game, the style of the animation.
Maybe I should ask you this question while I was playing.
No, it's okay. I mean, I remember feeling like, I remember feeling when I played this. Let's see, I was not that far out of animation school actually. Yeah, I started a little late in life as an animator, and I remember I had a couple jobs, like I said, and one was doing cinematic stuff for Uncharted, and so a lot of experience that I had was very realistic games.
Right.
And when this came out, and I played Tools of Destruction before this, but playing through those just felt really fun and fresh, because I feel like a lot of the industry has been moving towards more realism, as trying to get the games as realistic as possible, which is fine. But it's always fun to have a really cartoony style, and I always felt like this really delivered on that more so than a lot of other games. And it's always clear that there's a lot of really nice hand-keyed animation in these. That is always a lot of fun for an animator to be able to look through and see. I keep getting hit by those.
Yeah, and that's way too big. I don't know what we're thinking. We gotta fix that.
Yeah, that's.
So we got a kind of a
got to the
detailed
end.
question here.
Did we?
So, if Kronk and Zephyr really died in Into the Nexus,
How did I not get that?
does that mean that Quark was actually telling the truth about his heroic adventures fighting pirate ghosts? Well, I guess technically it could be correct because they would be ghosts in that case, but he didn't actually fight their ghosts, so he was still lying.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had pirate ghosts in Quest for Booty.
Right.
Robot
Yeah.
pirate ghosts.
So that's who he was referring to, although he likes to overindulge.
Well,
So.
wait, but he wasn't fighting them in Quest for Booty, so
Yeah.
I don't know who he's referring to.
All right, got my bearings. That shadow helps.
Yeah, I think it was always refreshing, kind of going back and forth between like a more serious game like Resistance and the Ratchet games. And so, if we got tired of working on Ratchet, and there's more serious and detailed, I guess, or at least it's more realistic.
Yeah.
Game to work on versus this, and kind of going back and forth. They contrast each other well.
I could imagine it would be helpful to be able to put one aside every once in a while and focus on the other style, and then come back around and be able to do, whether it was cartoon.
Chat is kind of exploding here.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to, on Friday, we're going to review the trailer and talk about the trailer. We are not going to be playing the game. All right, just to make that clear. We are just reviewing the trailer, answering questions about the trailer. That is all. All right. Just talking about the trailer, watching the trailer, and talking about it. Okay, it's all clear now. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, that's fine.
I want to make sure people aren't like.
Now, what's crazy about this game is I feel like it's one of our biggest Ratchet games. And it was developed in like one of the shortest amount of times.
Yeah, that's so surprising to me, considering how, there's just so much going on, and I know when looking at this stuff, the time it takes to iterate on things and come up with all the ideas and make sure it's all blending together well, and then once it's all in, like go in and tweak it to make it even better. And for the amount of time, it's like, how did that happen?
Yeah, for Tools of Destruction we had 2 years, but we were also developing new tech. And then we thought we were going to go into a crack in time and have 2 years to develop it. But then we decided to make a smaller game because at the end of Tools of Destruction, we left you with a cliffhanger. So we made this short game in 6 months called Quest for Booty. Mm-hmm. And then we thought, okay, now we'll have like a year and a half to do a crack in time. But then we were having issues where Resistance 2 still needed some more time to cook. So all of our team from Quest for Booty moved over to Resistance 2. And I think there was like 3 people working on pre-production on Crack in Time. And then we just had this mad rush to like finish this big game. But I think everyone was, even though it was pretty brutal working on it, everyone just loved it. Really people got into it. We wanted to make this the best Ratchet game. And at the time we thought this might be one of our last Ratchet and Clanks. And we wanted to end on that high note.
Right. Well, it's funny now. It always feels like that.
I know. Yeah, I thought the Up Your Arsenal was going to be one of our last Ratchet and Clanks. So, I think the thing is that not a lot of platformers have endured.
Yeah.
So we saw some games just kind of put to the side. Whether it be like the Jack and Daxter series. There's even older platformers like Gex. I don't know how that jumped into my head, but there's some really old platforms that just kind of disappeared. And so we were wondering if Ratchet and Clank would one day just suffer the same fate. But hey, people still want to play them.
Yeah, and I think, also like what's old is new again, and trends change and stuff, and you're seeing kind of resurgence of platformers in the last couple of years.
Right.
And, a lot of new audiences that, maybe a little younger, and they're growing up with all like the modern, hyper-realistic looking games. And then when they get an opportunity to look at stuff that came beforehand like this, or newer iterations of games like this, they're really excited and into it. So, there's definitely always going to be a place for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I was telling Brian before we started, my kids who are 10 and 12, almost 13, they both love Ratchet and Clank. I don't think it's something that goes out of style, really. The trends always seem to circle back around, and kids love these kinds of adventure games, for lack of a better word, although I know that's not the right term for what this is, but that's what it feels like. I feel, for a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what do I need to do?
I don't know that myself. I was wondering, how do we get to the next sector? I should know this.
Chat, help us out.
The galactic map. Okay. All right, so we need to go down to here.
Perfect. Yes, that's it.
All right.
Of course, the galactic map. Duh. I thought there was a location that we could fly to for some reason. Maybe that was one of our earlier designs. It's always hard when you're developing games, and sometimes you have this old idea of what it was supposed to be, and you kind of hang on to it. All right, back to Clank.
I forget, how did he get here?
The Zoni took him.
Oh, they took him.
And then, but Nefarious has now jumped in. He wants to control time.
Right.
Clank is the key to doing it. This is Sigmund.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I was
Perilous Peanut says, did you guys at Insomniac know there's going to be a huge Ratchet speedrunning event on the 15th anniversary? It's going to be real cool. That does sound pretty cool, Perilous Peanut.
I've watched those events and I'm astounded at how they play. They find all these crazy glitches to like ghost through walls and like practically levitate to locations that we never intended people to go.
Caretaker here at the Great Clock. Forgive me, but what is the Great Clock?
Out here! We're late! Come! We don't have a lot of time! Figuratively speaking, of course. Where is everyone? Not really sure. Nefarious and his troops just picked up and left after that butler guy tossed you into the hall. Not a very
Well,
pleasant look,
it's
are
3:06. We have time for a couple more questions before we wrap it up here, and we'll see a little bit of Clank gameplay. So, if you guys have any last questions, fire them off right now.
Hypersonic brainwave scrambler. People wonder why we keep this place a secret.
This is like some early traversal training where we're just teaching you how to do basic jumps and double jumps, glides.
Gotta like triple jump before you start.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what it
Well,
is?
he has like
Helicopter,
a
I think.
3-step jump. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Is your
You have to
Okay.
kind of press it.
There
1,
we go. We
2,
get the
3.
yeah.
Okay, here's the questions. A lore question. Where is Orvis? Are we going to see him again in the future?
Well, we can't really answer that question. But Orvis was voiced by Charles Martinet, who's the voice of Mario. And we had some really kind of cool sequences. I don't think we ever did this intentionally, but you're traveling through this white world where Orvis is giving you some instructions and teaching you about your powers to control time.
That's right.
And it felt like you were in like Nintendo Wii Land,
Right.
listening to Mario.
Right. I remember that.
Perilous Peanut says, how did it feel to revisit the entire history of the series for the art book? How did the team react to looking back on all that great stuff? Well, Perilous Peanut, it was actually only a few Insomniacs were concentrated on working that. Dave and Greg, the principal artists of Ratchet Clank, who are in the North Carolina office, and James Stevenson, who usually hosts the show, but not today. They were working very closely on it, and most of the team here is really crunching on Spider-Man and the Paris trailer that you just saw. So James was juggling both those at the same time, but actually for the rest of us, a lot of us are going to be surprised when we see it because it's kind of like a fresh new thing for a lot of us. And also, our team has been growing so much in the last couple of years. Some people that are working here have not even worked on a Ratchet game or on the older Ratchet games. I mean, like myself, I did not work on this game. I wish I did, but I came in afterwards. I started on Into the Nexus. So, yeah, that's kind of not really a great answer to your question, but...
It is kind of wild, though, on occasion to look back at some of the really early concept art and see how Ratchet evolved. Like, at one point, he was like, he wasn't even Ratchet. He was like this lizard with goggles, and I think another point he looked like kangaroo, like with some sort of diaper type thing on. So it was really cool how he just evolved, and I remember there's been a lot of really great back and forth conversations about kind of pairing up Ratchet, who's like this mechanic with a dream, and then Clank, who's this highly advanced robot.
It's like if C-3PO could fight.
Right.
While the chamber is
Oh, there we go.
Temporal recording initiated.
Anastasia asks, you think you guys might bring back the Great Clock in future installments?
Temporal recording initiated.
I loved the Great Clock, and I thought it was a really cool concept. I loved what the artists accomplished with it. I think it's one of our more gorgeous levels. It's a great example of taking an idea or a theme and just like running with it, going crazy. And just the idea that there's this clock at the center of the universe that controls all of time. And so whenever we have time gameplay, if we ever make another Ratchet and Clank and we ever do time gameplay again, I'm sure the Great Clock will be featured.
Nice.
All these qualifiers.
Right.
Here we are. So,
The Megas says, are there any of the temporal recording puzzles that give you a hard time on replays?
To mnemonic station beta.
You know what? When we first hit this, I was like, oh gosh, I do remember some of these being problematic when I first played.
partition in your memory banks.
I feel like most of them you're at least able to get on the second try. Like maybe the first try you kind of see what's happening, and then the second try, oh, okay, here's what I gotta do.
I feel like there are later ones, right? I'm not imagining this.
Oh yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like some of those are where it got where they
Yeah.
got really complicated, and but yeah, they were never extremely difficult. I just remember feeling like this is a more clever puzzle than I would have expected.
Well, we let you skip them too, which was something that was a late addition, and we were thinking there was many debates about whether or not we should let people skip challenges, but we realized that for some people who just weren't a big fan of platforming puzzles, that it would just be a game breaker for them.
Right.
It would just halt their progress. And you can always go to game facts, but we thought, why force people to do that? If that's not their cup of tea, let them proceed.
Yeah.
And I don't think we got a lot of complaints. If people really wanted the challenge, they would do the challenge.
Right.
I missed the follower earlier. Megatech, thank you for following. And
Megatech.
DSP Maxi, thank you for following. And we'll do one last question here, which was, what's the biggest inspiration for Ratchet and Clank?
Wow. That is a great question. Well, I was fortunate to be on the team of Insomniacs. We were about 25 people at the time we started developing Ratchet and Clank. And a big inspiration was, oddly enough, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Mega Man, Star Wars, of course. There's a lot of Tatooine kind of similarities there, and one movie that I really liked was Nausicaa: Warriors of the Wind.
Ooh, yeah.
And remember that little creature that sat on her shoulder? Looks a lot like Ratchet. And then Iron Giant for Clank. So those were a number of, I guess, various things that were.
Oh yeah, as Jaws. Yeah. No, I never thought about that before, but I see it now. All right, well, that's gonna do it for today. We're past 3:10 now. All right, well, everyone, thanks so much for watching, and I'd like to thank my guests, Brian Allgeier and Jeff Weidner. And so tune in again Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific. We're gonna have a very special Spider-Man trailer rewind with creative director Brian Intihar. And also on Wednesday, I'm going to be streaming, just because we always want to keep Monday, Wednesday, and Friday streams. So I'm going to do Mega Man X Wednesday at 2. Apparently Mega Man was an inspiration for Ratchet, so you can kind of, look at the old school version, I guess. Not really too related to this game at all, but, just keeping the streaming going. So that'll be Wednesday at 2. All right. That'll do it for today. Until next time, thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you.